Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. It's time for our first normal length, merely half an hour video of the new year, the January tier list. And as Spiffy vs. the World continues, we've also got a friend to compete with, Goose from the Sunday Morning Sumo Show. As some people said when I asked whether to do one or the other, why not both? Gonna structure this video a little differently. We're gonna do the Banzuke top to bottom, and I'll mark the prediction at the end of the wrestler segment, not the beginning. Thought it might be more interesting, let me know if you agree in the comments. I'll include Goose's picks in sections, after the Sanyaku, Maegashira 5, 10, and the end. Okay, let's go. Hoshoryu. January will mark the end of Hoshoryu's first year as a Yokozuna, and there's still the question as to when he'll win his first Yusho at the rank. I'm trying to figure out if a Yokozuna can be considered genuinely unlucky. He used to be kind of a third wheel to some mix of Churanoumi, Kirishima, Kotozakura, and the Maegashira upstart of the day. He broke out of that with a somewhat controversial promotion to Yokozuna, but Onosato followed him up as a perceived Dai Yokozuna in waiting before he'd really solidified himself at the rank. Now he's third wheeling it again with Aonishiki in the mix, and it feels like it's consistently forgotten or ignored that he has held up his end of being a Yokozuna. That probably sounds like a long way of saying this dude is S tier. It's a close thing though. Since last November when he turned on the Jets, every basho he's completed has been 12 or 13 wins, so S is a safe default. But he got a little banged up in practice and it doesn't take much of a slip for him to only win 11. I'm sticking with S mainly because the matchups haven't really changed, and it's not like he can do any worse against Aonishiki, right? Onosato. Even though Onosato's had 11 wins twice in 3 tournaments as a Yokozuna, he's still the safest S tier pick of the lot. The first 11-4 was the usual post-promotion disappointment, and the second was due to his injury in November after an 11-1 start. And that shoulder remains the big question going into January. Unfortunately, we have very little information about it, and thus, once again, the Onosato section is pretty short. I'm gonna go S because even with the reports of him being slow to return to hard training, the rest time could also serve as a benefit. Plus, if the shoulder is really an issue, it's liable to lead him to dropping out, and then we'll all be wrong. Kotozakura. Let's see. He wins a 14-1 Yusho, follows it up with a 5-10 due to serious injury woes, goes 8-7 3 straight times, gets off to a 9-4 start in September and looks like he's finally coming around, only to crash out with a knee injury suffered while beating Hoshoryu, goes 8-7 again. As much as I'd like to trust in him for another definite winning record, he probably doesn't get there in November without Onosato's injury. He's as locked into the 7-9 win range as a person can get, C+ all the way. Aonishiki. If you saw the mega breakdown, you'll hopefully understand when I say Aonishiki is still wobbling on that A+ S tier boundary. For prediction purposes, the question is whether he's more likely to win 11 or 13. All other things being equal, I still would lean towards 11. Some fans will take that as a diss, but that just shows how 11-4 can be underappreciated as an excellent record. Onosato's status does complicate things a bit. Then again, Yoshi's still a problem, and Aonishiki's Yusho included high wire escapes against Takayasu and Hakunofuji. Basically, even if Aonishiki is much better about staying informed than other recent Ozeki and Yokozuna promotees, there are simply far more paths leading to 11 wins than 13. A+ is the logical choice. But I'm going S tier. All he's done is prove everyone wrong, and at this point I'd rather be wrong on the optimistic side than the pessimistic one. Kirishima. This fucking guy. With Shoninoumi and Nishikigi both finally collapsing and dropping out of Makuuchi, Kiri stands alone as the hardest to predict wrestler in Sumo's top division. It's not just that, in his last 8 tournaments, he's gone 11 or more wins 4 times, 8 wins twice, and 6 wins twice. It's that, when he does well, the results are largely as expected, but when he struggles, he loses several fights to guys he normally beats. And how the hell can you predict when that's gonna happen? As much as I'd like to hope for 11 wins, because Kiri is a lot of fun to watch when he's clicking, his injury history always militates against hoping for too much. Given that he hasn't put together back-to-back strong tournaments in 2 years, we'll stick with B tier, and if he craters or pops off, so be it. Takayasu. Papa Bear looked more energized and aggressive in November than he has in ages, but he still needed 3 wins at the end to go Kachikoshi and earn his Sekiwake promotion. It's of a piece with his 2025 in general. It's the first time since, no joke, 2016 that he went a full calendar year with no missed matches. But apart from his battering ram run at the title in March, he was light on high-end results. Normally I'd expect the elevation to Sekiwake to make his life easier at the start of the basho, but his first 4 matches will likely be against Wakatakakage, Takanosho, Hakunofuji, and Daieisho. None have been great matchups for him lately. But he's also been quite good over the last year against Koto, Oho, and Wakabro, so the Sanyaku doesn't look like a disaster waiting to happen. My brain says C- slightly louder than my heart says C+, so C- it is. Oho. Believe it or not, I think Komusubi might be better for Oho than Sekiwake. He's going to get spiked by the rest of the Sanyaku in the first 9 days, maybe 10, but if he can avoid getting completely run over, his life should get easier from there. And he's been a strong finisher. In 2025, during days 13 through 15, he had a 17-1 combined record. Granted, that's usually because he was complete ass the first 12 days and got scheduled against his fellow struggle bus passengers, but it also covers his 2 strong bashos as well. It comes to this: if he wants a winning record, he needs 3 wins in 7 Sanyaku matches. He beat all of them at least once in 2025, but he also had a combined 9-22 record against the group. But Onosato's injury gives him just enough hope to land him in C- rather than D, but expect almost everyone else in the group to be above him. Wakamotoharu. If Kotozakura is 100% the most C+ guy around, Wakamotoharu is 95%. Waka's occasional foot issues and relatively straightforward style sometimes dips him down to 6 wins, but 7 is broadly a safe expectation. Combine that with 10 wins looking way too optimistic these days, and the Wakabro sits safely at C+. How about Goose's picks? Well, this sure is looking like a competition. Onosato, Kotozakura, and Takayasu are our only points of agreement. He's got Kiri at A- and Wakamotoharu at B, which, different picks but probably a point for each of us. Then he's got Hoshoryu and Aonishiki at A+ instead of S, which, honestly, probably the smarter decisions. Goose also has Oho at C+. If you want to see us disagree about a whole bunch of other stuff in one video, head to the Sunday morning Sumo show and check our live stream end-of-year discussion. Ichiyamamoto. Believe it or not, there are some positives for Ichiyamamoto going into January. He's 2-0 against rank mate Yoshinofuji, 2-1 against Wakatakakage, 50-50 against Kirishima. Historically, he's been at least decent against several of the guys in his new neighborhood, but historically is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Recent history is a lot less friendly. Yoshi's the only guy in the top half of the division he has a winning record against since March. 8 wins this basho would mean a Komusubi spot. That's so unlikely he could probably retire if it happens. Maybe he ohos his way to 7 by getting blasted so hard his finishing schedule falls off a ton and lets him skid to a decent record. But Oho's at least better than most of the guys further down. Sorry Ichi fans, ya boy goes to F tier. Yoshinofuji. Yoshi's become a curious case. He shit-stomped Juryo, instantly competed for an Emperor's Cup, then struggled substantially in squeaking out a Kachikoshi at Maegashira's 6. Then, despite a leg injury, he went 9-6 in November with wins over Onosato and Aonishiki. I view Yoshi kind of as a smarter Oho. He wins with chunky power, but understands how to mix things up a bit. His skill set hasn't necessarily caught up to that understanding though, and that makes this basho look tough. He's struggled in limited attempts against most of his expected opposition, and nearly all his top division wins have come against opponents outside that group. But he's learning, he's hopefully healthier, and not having to face his Fuji bros means he'll get to dip further into the division's soft underbelly. I feel optimistic enough to make him a low C+. Ura! Lots of us are big Pinky fans, so let's rip the band-aid off now. D tier. Yeah, he looked sensational last basho. He made it known that the 10-5 in September wasn't merely a result of being in the mid-ranks. He was sort of like Hoshoryu in that he stopped leaning totally on technique and relied on straightforward sumo more often, to a very positive effect. And he still only finished 8-7. Here's the bigger issue. If he wants to replicate that, then he either needs a major upset or two that he didn't find last time, or he needs this more aggressive approach to keep working against Wakamotoharu and Oho, highly troublesome opponents who he beat in November. It could happen, yes, but I'm also getting visions of Midorifuji, who was also very successful with a change in style until his opponents adapted, and it didn't take that long for them to do it. Wakatakakage. Waka's November was tough to watch. His neck injury from September was obviously impeding his sumo, and we've seen examples of how difficult neck injuries can be to shake. It's hard to imagine him doing worse than 7 wins, and if he's feeling good, of course he can pop off big time. But the possible variance in his performance means there's not a lot to say until we see him in action. I'll be conservative with this prediction and say C+. I'm just leery to hope for too much with this type of injury until recovery is clear and proven. Takanosho. If Takanosho could fight Kirishima at least 6 times per basho, I would believe in his ability to hit 8 wins at this rank. Alas, this is not the case. The last time he had a winning record in the Joy, the top 16 guys, was the end of 2021. He's had those epic runs from Maegashira 6 and 7, but the connecting thread there is he started lower down and had a chance to get on a roll. That end of 2021 is also the last time he had more than 6 wins in a basho where he started with a Sanyaku schedule. It's been ugly at the top. Even stretching to the bottom of the division, we can't find a ton of good matchups, so struggling early won't necessarily set him up with easy wins late. I'll put him above Ichi, but he's still down in F tier. Hakunofuji. Whether it was his arm injury or just riding the 8 and 7 train for too long, Hakuoho finally skidded to his first full basho losing record and then into his proper Fujiness. Even with another Kinboshi, albeit against a different Yokozuna, he couldn't manage even a single extra win against anyone who finished with a winning record. To make things worse, his 6 wins included not just his first win against Hoshoryu, but also against Tamawashi. I suspect he'll have more success against Iron Man in the future, and he might get back to his winning ways against Papa Bear and Pinky Boy, but he has a lot of negative matchups and he can't always rely on Kinboshis to carry him. His attempts at more powerful, straightforward sumo should be good long term, but he's still struggling with it right now. At some point it'll click and I'll look like an idiot for doubting him, but I'm not going to give him credit for the necessary progress until I see it work. Solid C-. Daieisho. How's the leg? That's the only question here. Daieisho never missed a match for non-COVID reasons until his missed tournament in July, and his calf injury remained a problem in September. He looked solid in Kyushu, but it's also pretty easy to see the difference in quality between the guys he beat and the guys he didn't, and I don't know if any of the guys who beat him would do the same to the pre-injury version. On the plus side, muscle injuries are the easiest ones to fully heal, so he could be back to 100% in January. Sitting at 4 East also means the Hornet's Nest won't come to kick him right away, so he looks like a safe B-tier pick. Things would have to go pretty wrong for him not to have a winning record, but he needs to show full recovery before we can have more faith in him than that. Atamifuji. This is Atami's life now. Quality mid-ranker, Joy bomb. Since his arthritis diagnosis was made public, he's had 2 tournaments in the top 16 and went 5 and 10 both times. Being exactly number 16 though complicates things a bit. Technically, he's set up to face the Sanyaku. Realistically, over the past year, the number 16 guy has faced 3 to 5 Sanyaku opponents, not the whole lot. Moreover, that total has roughly correlated to how well they're doing. Better performance, more Sanyaku. So realistically, that complication actually makes the prediction a little easier. Atami should blast most of the guys below him and get rinsed by most above. The better he does early, the more likely he is to get rinsed late, and vice versa. Since the Sanyaku he's most guaranteed to fight are the best ones, he plops into C-, but he could avoid enough of them to find a respectable finish. Tamawashi. I maintain Tamawashi got done a little dirty by the Banzuke committee, but it might benefit his record. Where the number 16 guy might avoid some Sanyaku matches, number 17, Tamawashi spot, usually has very few, sometimes none. That sets him up for a lot of fights against Maegashira 4 through Maegashira 9 or 10. The only bad recent matchups in that group are Atami, Onokatsu, and arguably Kinbozan. If Iron Man's feeling froggy, he can notch a lot of wins there, and over the last year, he has a winning record against everyone from Maegashira 1 through 3 except Ura. Granted, half those records are 1-0, but wins are wins. The reported back injury is slightly concerning. Then again, there was a similar report some months ago, and it had so little effect on his performance, I don't even remember when it was. So I'm not going to get twisted up worrying if now is the time he craters. If it happens, it happens. Until then, solid C+. Churanoumi. Sometimes I'm amazed Ura and Churanoumi are stablemates. If there was a mirror universe to ours based on happiness, Chura would be Ura's counterpart over there. Maybe that's how they met. Anyway, the unhappy engine that could's been pretty decent lately. He really got my attention with his win over Onokatsu at the start of November. Onokatsu is 100% the superior athlete, but he's also been a little sloppy, and Chura took advantage with decisive movement and solid technique. He's improved his sumo to where he's capable of punching above his weight, but there's a limit to how far that can carry someone. And unlike Tamawashi, that Maegashira 4 through 10 range is not the center of a Tootsie Pop, it's the center of a minefield. At least Daieisho's waiting for him in the minefield. As his Tootsie Pop? Is this metaphor working? Whatever, C-. Let's check in with Goose again. Looks like we agree on Yoshinofuji and Tamawashi at C+, Churanoumi at C-, and that's it. In fairness, he has Ichiyamamoto and Ura at D tier, so we're going in the same direction there. He's got more faith in Wakatakakage and Daieisho's health, plopping them at B and A+, respectively. If Daieisho's really feeling it, that pick could be genius. He's got Hakunofuji and Atamifuji at B tier. Feels optimistic for Atami, but if he's picking this to be the basho where the ex-Hakuoho puts it together, I do get that pick. And Takanosho at A+? Goose agreed to do this for fun, not to get roasted, so I say this in all sincerity. Goose, please let me know if this was a misclick. Hiradoumi. Hey, Hiradoumi's out of Sanyaku range. Winning record ahoy! That is 100% the expectation. Daieisho and Tamawashi are usually issues for him, and if Shodai can still do anything semi-consistently, it's beat up on smaller guys. He's also never faced Fujinokawa, and that looks like a fun match. Past them though, Hiradoumi can ransack pretty much the rest of the division below him. His overall upside will be somewhat limited by either unexpected losses or a schedule upgrade if he pops off early, but I don't know what force short of injury could pull him up short of 8 wins, B tier. Onokatsu. Kyushu's biggest disappointment is at Maegashira 6 for the 3rd straight basho and well positioned to sadden us once again. He'd had at least moderate success against so many prospective opponents in November, the only question seemed to be how far into the joy he would ascend come January. Instead, he looked completely lost against any opponent where he wasn't highly confident in his approach. It was a bizarre sight from a guy whose calling card during his rise through Juryo and lower Makuuchi was steadiness and consistency. Initially, I thought he lost confidence, but there might be another explanation: weight gain. He's gone from 160 kilos when he started in Juryo to 174 now. Even if the extra weight hasn't impacted his actual ability to move, it's possible he doesn't feel as comfortable in his body now. That sure looked possible last tournament. In either case, he's still relatively young and capable of adapting. I'll stay on the optimistic side and nudge him into low C+. Oshoma. Oshoma's been in Makuuchi for a year and a half. 6 tournaments from Maegashira 6 down, 63 and 42. 10 wins 3 times, 9 twice, 7 once. 3 tournaments from Maegashira 4 up, 11 and 34. He's so awkward to watch, especially when he's getting drilled by the top of the division, that it feels off ever having any confidence in him. By the numbers though, he should be locked in at B tier, so that's where I'll put him. Fujinokawa. Fuji, I want you to do well. I want you to do well so much, and you probably won't. I haven't lost faith in Fuji long term. And even though 7 West is a career-high rank, I know his struggles at his last career-high rank in September were partly due to a goofy elbow. Only thing is, he had that elbow wrapped up for part of November as well. His opponents should range from Maegashira 5 through about Maegashira 12. Everyone above him looks tough, and Shodai as well right below him. He hasn't beaten Nishikifuji yet either. Even with a healthy elbow, that's a lot of mountains to climb. I don't think he'll completely crater, but I can't put him above C-. If he makes such big strides as to hit 9+ wins, hey, good for him. Shodai. When I said Kirishima is the most unpredictable wrestler in the division, no, I didn't forget about Shodai. If Shodai usually beats a guy, he'll keep usually beating the guy. The chaos of which he is our Dark Lord comes from the fact that when he does give up those one-off wins, they somehow happen at the least expected times, and sometimes they happen all in one basho. Shodai's opponent list is positive enough, both historically and recently, that B tier is not an unreasonable pick. But I'm pretty sure speaking such a prediction into the world will invert probability and make him go 3 and 12, so I'm sticking with C+. If I ever do put Shodai in B tier though, head to the casino, because that inverted probability means you can finally beat the house. Kinbozan. If this fucking guy stays at 8 West much longer, they might have to retire the rank once he's gone and just leave the spot open after that. C-. Do it again. Do it again, Kinbo. You have records to set. Gonoyama. Career-wise, these mid-ranks have been Gonoyama's playground. Only once has he had a losing record at rank 6 or below, that is, outside any expectation of Sanyaku matches. But his 9 and 6 in November included losses to Ryuden and Shonanoumi, 2 very positive matchups, and overall, even the bottom of the division showed they knew the playbook to use against him. More problematic is that he showed no indication of knowing how to overcome that playbook, and now there aren't as many guys in his orbit who will just stand there and take their beating. I have him right on the B/C+ border, but the more I look at it, the more I just can't see a way he only ends up with 7 wins, so into B tier he goes. Roga. If that rapper had said 7-8 instead of 6-7, we'd have seen an explosion of Roga merch in middle schools across America. Alas, he continues to work in relative obscurity, constantly surrounded by more likable, more hateable, or simply more baffling competitors. November's 8-4 start offered some reason to be positive, and 3 of his 7 losses came to opponents he shouldn't face this time. But he also gets absolutely bludgeoned by most of the guys above him, and he's likely to see quite a few of them. If he was Maegashira 10, he'd face more opponents lower in rank, and I could reasonably put him at C+. At rank 9, even though I don't have a clear reason to believe he'll finally do worse than 7 and 8, I also have no idea how he'll do better than 8 and 7. He goes to the top of C-. Tokihayate. I guarantee a decent number of fans will look at just how strong Toki started out in November, take that as a sign of some permanent improvement, and expect big things since 10 East isn't that high of a rank. The relatively big promotion might actually help, since it makes matches with Asanoyama and Asahakuryu less likely. But what helps more is that there are a number of guys like Oshoma, Midorifuji, and Roga where he's turning around what used to be horrendous head-to-heads. That puts him closer to the C+, C- border than I expected when I started looking him over. Into high C- he goes. Kotoshoho. I can still taste an edge of disappointment from how Koto's November ended, enough that I genuinely don't want to talk about him much. Before the Basho, he looked like he should sail to a winning record, and for 12 days he was exactly the guy I expected to see. Then he fell apart, either mentally or physically, I'm not sure which. He's at the same rank, surrounded by most of the same guys, so I can go with the same prediction, C+. Okay, let's see what Goose has got here. Looks like some more agreements. Hiradoumi at B, Onokatsu C+, Oshoma B all the same. Fujinokawa C-, same. Shodai C- against my C+, but that's an entirely understandable pick. Kinbozan B tier is what Kinbozan should be, maybe this time he'll actually do it. And everyone else, basically one step higher than I have them. Gonoyama A-, Roga C+, Tokihayate B, Kotoshoho B. Okay, Toki is 2 steps higher, but I have Toki at the top of C-, so we're both leaning basically optimistic there. So overall, that's 10 matching picks and 18 different ones. I'm already glad we did this. Let's see the rest. Oshoma. Chio had hernia surgery that cost him the first 5 days of July 2024. He came back, did okay, then stomped his way all the way to Maegashira 2 before falling off. Then he had another surgery, collapsed into Juryo again, and is stomping again. Has this guy considered just resting more? It seems to do more for his sumo than anything else, and he might need some rest because his matchups look terrible. This is a stat that seems impossible. Since March, against everyone currently ranked below him, his collective record is 3-11, and that includes 0 matches against Asanoyama or Asahakuryu. The matchups say he's D tier, but he's beaten the odds enough recently that I'll put him at lowish C- instead. Nishikifuji. I can't lie, Nishikifuji vindicating my faith in him last Basho felt pretty good, and I feel pretty good about his chances this time too. He's been in a winning mode against just about everyone near him, only Tokihayate has been a genuine problem. Plus, since his 8-3 start in November led to some much tougher matchups, he's likely to face just 2 of the 6 opponents who beat him. His injury history, plus the fact most of those positive matchups are a little thin numerically, keep me from putting him in B tier, barely. Safe C+. Midorifuji. It seems like every time Midori drops to a double-digit rank, something triggers in him to turn it around and climb a few spots. This makes sense in that he's a very clever wrestler, and he's able to abuse the newness of guys coming up from Juryo to get those couple extra wins. I think his record against the 3 promotees this time will also decide whether he gets 8 wins, but they're not your normal set of scrubs. It's gonna be tough. I'm ready to be surprised, but I have Midori locked in at C-. Abi. I don't know, man, I don't know. Abi's been riding the high tide for so long, he's never faced most of the guys in the bottom ranks. Looking back at November, the most telling part was his 3 straight wins. He clearly wanted to take it to Daieisho and was able to keep that going for 2 more days before he physically couldn't do it anymore. C- at this rank would have been unthinkable just half a year ago, but today it might be optimistic. Tobizaru. Tobi's November was better than his record, a little. Going 6-7, then finishing against Ura and Nishikifuji, that's an unfortunate schedule. He was definitely not 100%, and even if his drop-off isn't Abi level severe, it's still noticeable and probably won't go away. He's in a similar position to Midori Fuji, where I'd probably skew positively if the Juryo promotees were scrubs, but this batch makes me go the other way, C-. Tomokaze. The math is simple. First, how many little dudes does he get to fight? Fuji's out of range, so that's Midori, probably Tokihayate, Tobizaru, and Asahakuryu. How many busted up guys does he get? Abi, maybe Oshoumi, although Oshoumi beat him in November. Then there's Shishi. Not enough wins, D tier. Shishi. Now we really dig into the guys who have to start strong. If you're new to sumo, what I mean by that is the guys at the bottom all fight each other early. After that, all their opponents have to be higher ranked, which usually means tougher matches. So if the guys down here want to do well, it helps a lot to start strong. Shishi's been fine in recent tournaments against the other double-digit guys, but his dumpster fire footwork might make him more vulnerable than anyone to the Juryo guys, even Hatsuyama. As another wrestler who likes to pick on little guys, the situation's not hopeless, but it's not really positive either. C-. I can't nickname him the other white meat, right? Right, forget I said anything. Mitakeumi and Ryuden. I'm putting these guys together because the biggest difference between them is the size of their cheering sections. Both are veterans, beat up enough that they're just trying to keep their bodies hanging on a while longer, and look on the fast track to slightly losing records again. Against an average lineup, I'd have them both at C-, and when I started writing this, I thought I'd have them both in D tier. But Mitakeumi lost to Sadanoumi and Meisei in November, so even though they're being replaced by dangerous Juryo guys, I'm not sure he's likely to do much worse. Ryuden's more likely to hit a downturn. So absolute bottom of C- for Mitakeumi, D tier for Ryuden. Asahakuryu. Speaking of the Takasago boys, the Asas, we start with Asahakuryu in presumably his last basho as the stable's top man, at least for a while. The biggest upside for him, of course, is that as stablemates, Asanoyama and Asahakuryu are not potential opponents. Unfortunately, if injuries force him to face a Juryo wrestler, it lines up as Fuji Ryoga. Ouch. I know he got his Kachikoshi last time, but let's be frank, that's a lot less likely if circumstances don't hand him Kotoeho on the final day. He still hasn't gone below 6 wins in Makuuchi, so I'll put him in C-, but he goes between Oho and Mitakeumi. Asanoyama. Stomp, stomp goes the monster. Crinkle, crankle goes the monster's knee, reminding him not to stomp so loudly anymore. Yes, Asanoyama's back for the last time according to him, so he better make it count. His climb back through Juryo showed his knee is, in fact, something of an issue, and yet he went 12-3 twice in a row. He could blow through everyone here and start 8-0 or 8-1, but I suspect the competition will be slightly stiffer and throw him what, on paper, will be a couple surprising losses. On the flip side, a true steamroll will land him against the Sanyaku in short order, and his health does not seem sufficient to deal with most of them. That leaves his record in about the same place, 10-12 wins, an easy A+ pick. Oshoumi. The low-key fan favorite breaks up the Takasago trio in the ranks, which means he'll be the first to catch hands from all of them. When we see a massive difference in a wrestler's performance during one half of a basho than the other, the default view might be good version, bad version. In Oshoumi's case, we got wounded version, clever version. His arm was such a mess he went back to back with the Hankas, but somehow that got him on the right track and saved his spot in the division. He is, as many of us believed, capable of handling Makuuchi competition when healthy. If I was doing this the old way, where I placed a guy based on what he's capable of but acknowledged he might do worse due to injury, I might put him at C+. But we cannot possibly assume he'll be healthy, and if he's not, I don't think he can trick and grind his way to another decent score. A sad D tier here. Asahakuryu. Takasago number 3 comes in with somewhat muted hype. In his career, he speedran the early divisions, but when it looked like he'd make Juryo a year after his debut, he hit the Makushita grind. He stumbled around mid to high Makushita for almost 2 years before putting it all together, taking the Yusho in July, and following it up with a Juryo Yusho in September. All very impressive, but when he started November 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, it seemed like maybe he'd hit another wall. And that is possible. He ran off 7 straight wins when the top of the division was out of the way, so Makuuchi may still be tougher sledding than we normally expect for someone who blew through Juryo in 2 tournaments. The fact he doesn't bring a lot of clever tactics might set him up for a fall against certain veteran opponents as well. but he's physically built for this, and at the bottom of the division, that tends to mean a lot. B is a safety pick, but I think A- is more correct. Hatsuyama. Finally, the most surprising promotion I can remember seeing, maybe ever. Not because he didn't earn it. 11-4 at Juryo 5 has almost always resulted in promotion, but because he's kinda come out of nowhere over the last 6 months. 3 tournaments in Sandanme, over 2 years in Makushita, and a 20-25 record in his first 3 Juryo Bashos is not generally what we associate with high flyers. But he put it together in a big way over the back half of 2025, going 30-15 overall and climbing from Juryo 13 into now the top division. One thing I look for when trying to decide if something like this is a mirage is size. Sometimes a guy's style doesn't work that well until he hits a certain level of size and strength, and then everything clicks. Hatsuyama is unusual in this respect. He joined the sport at 140 kilos, actually dropped to 134, and started popping off when he got back above 140. If he keeps gaining size and strength, we might see even better results in the future. But we're talking about now, and he's walking into arguably the toughest version of Makuuchi we've seen in years. Maybe you can find a basha with more talented guys at the bottom of the division, but I'm looking for weak points, wrestlers who look set up to tumble back into Juryo, and the only one I see, Oshoumi, is more due to injury than a lack of ability. For that reason, I'm taking the safe route and putting Hatsuyama at C-, but if he gets on a roll and picks up 9 or 10 wins, I wouldn't be shocked. Goose picks! 14 guys in this group, so we should have more points of agreement. Let's see. Chiyoshoma at C-, same with Tobizaru, Asanoyama at A+, yup, Hatsuyama at C-. That's it? Okay, where do we have the same basic idea? Oshoumi, C- versus D for me, fair enough. Ryuden, same. Shishi in F tier, which I think that's for the memes, but it could also be correct. Nishiki Fuji at C-, sure, that's a pick where my positive vibes could backfire spectacularly. Asahakuryu at C-. Like I said, I think Asahakuryu is built for this, but he could also hit a wall and fall down. Mitakeumi at C+, well, I guess we're only thinking 1 win difference, so yeah, okay. Tomokaze at C+? Well, actually, if you figure he's got a great chance to beat the guys I mentioned, then he only needs like 2 more wins for this to be right. It's not an absurd pick. Abi at A+, I mean, old Abi, sure, definitely. Goose must have a lot more faith in that Abi showing up than I do, but we do know there's a version of him that can do this. Midori Fuji and Asahakuryu at A-. And that's the tier list for January 2026. Once again, thanks to Goose for joining our friendly competition. 28 different picks means we'll have lots to score, so best of luck to him and the community. Speaking of which, yes, we are doing the live stream. It'll be Thursday at the same time as previous streams, 2 p.m. US Eastern, 11 a.m. US Pacific. The live stream link should show what time that is in your neck of the woods. Get your tier list picks in. Link for that is in the description. See y'all Thursday, and remember, check out sumospiffy.com to adopt your favorite sumo kitten today.